Hello, welcome to a brand new game here with Tomyris. We are on the Island Plates map, and of course we're going Deity and online speed, along with all the other settings, for instance, monopolies and corporations and disaster level 4. And it's really interesting because I was expecting more ocean than this on an island plates map, and yet I can't seem to find any. It would take way too long to try and find any. It's turn 2 already, and we have a nice place to settle with a whole bunch of districts already planned just around side it. This will hopefully be a science game. We have a bunch of mountains to work with already for that, so this should be a reasonable campus. Let's go settle, shall we? Settling on a luxury is always nice. If we find anybody else, we can always trade with them and get our economy kick-started with a nice little trade. We can also look forward to getting even more chocolate, because there's 3 more tiles of chocolate, of which 2 we can already obtain from our cap right now. There's also a bunch of different features that we can shop for a variety of different reasons, including wonders and potentially other benefits too. Looking at our kit, it's quite succinct, but you know what? There's quite a bit to it too. Killer of Cyrus. That reminds me of the Age of Abundance I recently had to do, but that's going to be another video for another time. All units receive +5 combat strength when attacking wounded units. When they eliminate a unit, they heal up to 30 hit points. Now, I think that's an incredible ability. Considering every single character, every single unit has the same number of 100 hit points, and the difference is, of course, how strong they are and how much they take damage. 30 is always going to be a sizable chunk, so it's a really nice, unique ability. I don't think there's any other civ that has this ability. It's quite remarkable. It stands her apart for sure. People of the Steppe. Receive a second light cavalry unit or Saka horse archer each time you train a light cavalry unit or Saka horse archer. Now, usually I don't bother with this because I'm not planning for a domination game, but this is still a pretty insane ability, and especially when it's using the specialist units, and of course specialist units have a reduced cost, you can probably churn out quite a few in very quick time. Saka horse archer, Scythian unique classical era unit, ranged unit with 4 movement and a range of 1. Aside from, of course, the era score boost that it provides, being a classical era unit means you can pretty much beeline to something like that pretty early. And given mobility and it being a horse, as well as the ranged attack, as well as the buff of the steppe, like, she's probably really good for this sort of like land military kind of idea. Kurgan unlocks the builder ability to construct a kurgan unique to Scythia. +1 faith and +3 gold, +1 faith for each adjacent pasture, becomes +2 after researching stirrups, provides tourism from faith after researching flight, cannot be built on hills. This is quite arguably the weakest aspect of her kit, and it's quite agreed upon by other people that you and I, I'm sure, both watch, that it's a little underwhelming. It's not only underwhelming in what it provides, being purely only faith and gold until flight, which is quite late on into any game, though of course, that's when it matters. But the fact that it can't be built on hills is slightly better than only built on hills, but it's still problematic. But also, pay attention. It requires to be better and to be arguably, reasonable adjacent pastures. This is such a caveat of problems, because not only being on disaster level 4, you can easily have natural disasters destroy either it, damage it, pillage it, or the pasture. You also, generally speaking, need to have a lot of builder chargers if you're going to want to invest both in constructing it and any adjacent pasture that you may also want, because you can't just put it next to a resource and have that happen naturally. This is more like it. Look how different the map looks now. Now, granted, of course, I don't necessarily want a lack of land, but it looks more like an island now, and one that we seem to be the only inhabitants of outside of a couple of city-states. And not only any city-states, but production city-states for our hopeful science game. We've also found Marble Arch, which we could potentially take advantage of as well, with maybe a nearby settlement or 2. We have some tea on the other side, but you will notice that they are both under the likelihood of being flooded. You know, I really like Auckland, and I'm really hoping to be able to suzerain this for the rest of the game. It is an incredible suzerain to be able to shallow water tiles you own provide +1 production, additional +1 when you reach the industrial area. To me, this is nuts. +2 production for any time that's relevant for building spaceport onwards for all your coastal tiles in a game like this where we're going to have tons of coastal tiles. Maybe not for our cap, but our cap already has the palace and all sorts of things. It's usually going to be our highest production cities anyway. But having our other cities benefit from having the proximity to so much land that's going to get extra production from Auckland is nuts. I also like having more production from Mexico City, if not for the suzerainty, then at least for simply having, you know, +3 production for every power plant building, or +2 production for every factory and or diplomatic quarter buildings. You know, we're going to be able to utilize this game and this setup quite well for a high productive science game. A few more turns have passed now, and of course, as always, whenever you're alone, you're never really alone, because there are barbs everywhere, and there's a barb camp that's been spawned over here, and we're going to have to try and defend it. We have a slinger and a warrior to be able to do so. We should be able to knock out this guy, which is going to make us good progress, not only with the experience that we get, but of course the healing. Don't forget, that ability is really awesome, especially to be able to snowball and get out of fights and eliminate the opponent's units without causing too much trouble and worrying about your defense. But we'll be able to move this warrior down back to the cap, maybe hold off this horse, try to fend off the immediate units, maybe snipe this builder, that would be really nice, before eventually taking this camp. This camp is a problem, we're going to have to deal with it at some point, but we don't really have that many units to use right now. We have a scout that has been exploring the map. It's coming back up here. Doesn't really want to get engaged with this barbarian horseman, doesn't really have the strength to do that, but still, it's a possibility just to hold off for a turn or two. Don't really want the barbarian units coming in any further, don't want them pillaging my farms, gaining back health, things like that. And of course, I'm putting my slinger here on the holy site to try and dissuade any barbarian from, you know, landing on this tile, pillaging this tile, and making our attempt to get a great profit any worse than it already is. There's already one civilization, I don't know, Russia, whoever, I don't know, already almost getting it. We don't want to be wasting any turns with our production queue worrying about barbarians sitting on it. So that's where the slinger will hold for the time being. But of course, we have a pantheon to choose. And there's so many options in this case. Even something like God of the Sea, which I used to only do for diplomatic victory games, is a viability when you have so much coast to work with. There's a river, or 2 rivers even, that we can potentially settle. River Goddess is interesting, but currently we're not positioning our holy sites in a way that would benefit from that. Of course, if this wasn't a science game, a game that I want to build many industrial zones in for the production, then I could more consider something based on appeal, like Earth Goddess, but as that's what we're aiming for, I don't think it's a viable choice in this particular instance. And generally, I think fertility rights is quite strong. We get another builder. The builder is a little precarious with barbs roaming around, but if we can escort it, there's quite a few nice chopping opportunities, and even maybe making a lumber mill or 2 for that increased production. It's also very important because we always want to make sure that our cities are healthy, going for a production-based game. Bigger cities are going to be incredibly important in making sure that we can generate the levels of production that we're looking for. So Having nice, big, healthy cities with the addition of fertility rights is not a bad idea at all. Okay, so we're 60 turns in. We've established the first few cities. We have a couple of settlers going north, and we can see that we have a lot of land to explore through, mainly because most of it's occupied by city-states, not an actual other civilization. Speaking of other civilizations, there is the Netherlands to the northeast, but they don't seem to really be concerned with much of this land. They have a couple of ships exploring us, but they haven't taken anything, so it's ripe for the taking. And speaking for the taking, we now have the opportunity to get a golden age. And of course, with any game really, at this sort of time, with an age like this, we'll take monumentality and hope to expand as much as possible. We have already 200 plus faith in our coffers, and we're getting 13 per turn, which is not that much, but you know, it's not too bad. Like, we have 2 separate holy sites, and even though we're building a builder, in a turn we'll be able to get a second temple, maybe boost this a little bit. We're also going to want to make sure that we have the holy site bonus, which we already have installed from this. We don't need the settlers anymore, because of course we're not going to be making them anymore like we were. We're going to be buying them. So maybe, given this is a science game, well, we're already building that builder, aren't we? So we might as well go with that. Take advantage of the here and now. Here we are, the last turn of this wonderful golden age, but not without having established, what, 8 cities? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and a 9th on the way with a position over here to do so. We have some really nice campuses for science. Haha, with 4 mountains in a lovely symmetrical fashion, giving us some real good science boost, which is far excelling our culture for now. We want to be trying to make the most of it. We do have this settled down, even though I'm trying to make a watermill for the production and the food in the meantime. We have established connections with almost every single other civ. There's only one other civ left that I don't know where it is, but that will happen momentarily, I'm sure. We need to befriend these 3, but it should be no problem. We're also 1 turn away from Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. Woo! This is a really important one there, right? I mean, this isn't necessarily the best city to put it in from the yields perspective. Not that I'm that concerned with that, because when it comes to a science game, you really care about that extra engineer charge that they give you, so something to look forward to with that.
Is over me in Halicarnassus, of such dimensions, of such exquisite beauty as no other shade can boast.
Yay! The fires have been lit, and we have our mausoleum ready for the science race. Over 100 turns in now, and as you can see, we finally found our final friend to make with Suleiman. We just did a diplomacy victory video with this guy. Doesn't seem to want to befriend us yet, but hopefully we'll be able to allure him with a pretty good relationship status. And we did so in part because we were circumnavigating the world. We were able to get open borders with Korea. We finally know where they are. And yeah, we've traveled all the way across the islands and made it back over to here and made it back to our territory. Also, we're about to build Petra. As you can see, we have 3 more cities. We have, and excuse me for the pronunciation, Pazurik, Mykop, and what's the other new one? Must be Olbia, right? Because that was the one that we were about to make, but we hadn't made quite yet last time. And we have quite a number of desert tiles, so hopefully this Petra will be pretty decent. It also offers the opportunity for, you know, a decent theater square. And speaking of decent theater squares, we even have like a nice sort of situation adjacency between Mausoleum and Hanging Gardens for a pretty good one for our cap, which will probably get to the kind of size required to have theater squares. Because, you know, culture is decent and nice. And getting those governments from the civic tree is going to be helpful, as well as some of the policy cards. So it's worth, you know, trying to bolster theater squares in science games. It's relatively secondary, of course, to anything crucially fundamental to a science game, namely, you know, campuses, industrial zones, and spaceports. But of course, the spaceport doesn't actually require a slot for the population. It is not a specialty district, so, you know, there's always some room for some cities to have decency. And if this city, has enough growth from all the desert tiles, then it will probably become big enough to be able to include a theater square in its works as well. Jumping a little bit ahead now, we've done all the groundwork, we've built our empire, we've built some strong cities, and every single one of them, yes, including my cop with 14 turns, which might be a little too slow to be fair, is building a spaceport. We indeed have reached the latter stages of the science tree. We have located nanotechnology. We've been doing some spy missions. We've also found smart materials. This is really important. We're on our way. We are obviously going to be facing some stiff competition, but we're hoping to be able to surpass them and boost our way to victory much quicker than they can. We have only one turn remaining for our first city's spaceport, Neopolis, and then we'll be able to start doing the moon landing and all that sort of good stuff to get our game going. Well, there it is, 178 turns later, and we have found our way to victory. We're about to set off this terrestrial laser station from our cap, and all our cities are in the process of using industrial zone logistics projects to power up our other terrestrial sites. It's pretty good, you know, overall. Every single city pretty much had its own part to play. We were pretty efficient with everything. We got quite a high number of light years going per turn. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and follow the channel if you enjoyed the content. Maybe leave a comment below, and I'll see you next time.
Much as our ancestors did ages ago, we thrust forward into the unknown. The first pioneers set forth on an uneasy course. And yet once again did our people thrive. Now, under your leadership, we plot a new course and make another world our own.